Thanks very much, Jeremy, and thanks to everybody who's come here tonight. We've had a marvellous day, really. We've stopped Tony Blair signing his book, and then we've stopped him. It's quite incredible. The Tate Modern, who probably many of you enjoy going to look at the art there, said that they just let these things out for commercial use and that they could let it out to anybody, which does, you know, rather, you know, if Mr. Hitler wanted to come along and hire a beer hall, you know, you think that maybe this would be all right. I think it's really a rather incredible thing that they've done this, and it seems to me that what we've done today is to say, when people say demonstrations don't matter, that actually they do matter, and holding Tony Blair to account, I think, has been one of the most important things that we've done, and we have to continue to do so. One of the reasons that it's important is, of course, it isn't just about history. People talk as though, you know, he hasn't been Prime Minister for 3 years, he's not doing any of these things anymore. He is actually the envoy for peace in the Middle East, which is a fairly amazing title that he's got. But so therefore he is directly involved in the politics of war. He has been, in every interview that I've heard, advocating war in Iran, and is certainly justifying the continuation of what is going on in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan. So this isn't just about history, it's about our future as well, and it's about how the future is really going to pan out for us. Now, I was thinking about this because this war has now gone on in Afghanistan, has gone on for longer than the First World War, longer than the Second World War. There was the commemoration of the London Blitz yesterday, where quite rightly people were remembering the terrible time that people had when London was bombed for 76 days non-stop. Every night was bombed, and in the first day of the Blitz hundreds of people were killed. And it's quite right that we commemorate that, but we should remember that we are carrying out aerial bombardment in Afghanistan. We've done so in Iraq. The British government gave at least tacit support to Israel over the bombing of Gaza. Barack Obama has killed more people. His drone attacks in Pakistan have killed more people in the last year than the bombing of Gaza actually did. And therefore, our government is responsible for a very, very serious set of attacks which still continue. And I think one of the things that's important for us to do is to really continue to campaign, because people otherwise forget that these wars happen. They don't anymore make the headlines of the papers most of the time. Even when the British soldiers die, this is usually relegated to one sentence on the television news and a tiny little paragraph in the newspapers. And one of the things that we have to do is to continue to get across what these wars mean, what they mean in terms of the deaths of thousands of people, of the suffering of thousands of people, the refugees, all these other things that are continuing. And of course, what's particularly important about this, and I hope that and I'm sure the MPs here and other MPs will try to get this across tomorrow, nobody really knows what this war is for. We were told in 2001 it was about capturing Osama bin Laden, who, as far as everybody knows, is still alive and well and living in Pakistan somewhere. We've been told at different times it's about women's rights, it's about democracy in Afghanistan, it's about making the streets of Britain safer for all of us. Well, I don't feel, least of all do I feel it when I come here to Parliament, when you have to spend half an hour going through security, which never used to be the case until we launched these wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, because now the terror threat is higher than it was in 2001. And all of these questions, when you look at it, they are completely bogus reasons for justifying the war. There is no safety from these wars brought to people in Britain. There is no democracy. There is no human rights and women's rights that are really being developed in Afghanistan. In many ways, exactly the opposite. And therefore, what we're doing here tonight is to say that we have to keep campaigning. Now, the speakers who have already spoken, and I know the MPs will do the same, we have this debate tomorrow. I guess that most of us, if we're realistic, won't expect a victory for the anti-war position in the debate. But I think one of the things that's important about Blair is that he ignored, it's amazing really, he didn't ignore the demonstrations today, which wouldn't have been more probably than a few hundred or maybe a couple of thousand people. He ignored the demonstration in 2003 where 2 million people marched. He dragooned his MPs, enough of them, to go and vote for the war in Iraq. What a shame he didn't cancel that war rather than cancelling the reception that he was going to have tonight. That would have been, he wouldn't then be facing these demonstrations. And that is a message I think we have, I hope is beginning to sink into a number of politicians and MPs in this House, but I hope will sink in more and more. And one of the things we have to do is make sure it does, because there is a huge democratic deficit here. Now, 80% of people in Britain want the troops out of Afghanistan. That should be end of story. That should mean that it is going to happen. But it obviously isn't going to happen by relying on the people who vote here in Parliament, and therefore we have to keep campaigning. I'm very, very pleased we have the new group which has been set up in Parliament. I think it's a real step forward, and I'm very, very glad that some of the MPs are here tonight. And I'd like to thank all the MPs who've done so much work to do all this. But we also have to keep campaigning. We have to. I think everybody here should contact their MP, if they haven't already done so, before tomorrow, to at least put more pressure on them to vote the right way. But we also have, or to turn up and vote, because it doesn't seem to me that they're under a great deal of pressure to turn up and vote over it. But we also have to get out on the streets and get out campaigning and go to our trade unions and community groups and political parties and students' unions and all the other things we're involved in, because we have got to get a mass opposition, an active opposition to this war. And I hope finally you will take the leaflets that we have here about the demonstration we're holding on November the 20th. We think this can be a very big and a very important demonstration. This government is a weak government over this question, not simply because there is no political justification for it, but we know that within the government, a coalition government like this, all sorts of political pressure can make a real difference to persuading them to take a different point of view. That is what we have to do. We know already they're talking about talking to the Taliban. We know already they're talking about fixing a date for withdrawal. I believe if you talk to politicians privately, probably the majority of them would say they can't see the sense in the war, yet they will go and vote for it tomorrow. We have to make sure over the next few months, and particularly through the demonstration on November the 20th, that they know very, very strongly what the state of British public opinion is, and that people are going to continue demonstrating until we win.